Hello and welcome to another Blender Cookie tutorial. This is David Ward, and tonight I'm going to be showing you how to create like a bird wing or like an angel wing with feathers and such. First thing I'd like to show you is, I'm sure maybe you've seen it already, but I've got my basic scene set up already because I always have to take time and set up the lights and everything. So I've got my light set up with the basic 3-light setup with my key light here, my fill light, and my backlight. The key light lights up most of the scene. The fill light kind of fills in some of the harsher shadows that the key light throws, and then the backlight kind of separates our object from the background. And I got my camera set up with tracking objects on each of them, as you can see. So I like to have this setup already set up. I hate having to do it every time. So what I've done is there's a way you can set any file that you make as your default file. Say you want to start with Suzanne the monkey head as your default file. You can do that. All you got to do is set your scene up the way you want, and then just go to File, User Preferences, and Save as Default. And that'll make the current file your default blend file. So then every time you go File New, it opens up the file that you have set as default. So anyways, all that aside, let's go ahead and get started on that wing. Okay, I'm going to modify my default file here. I'm going to select the cube here, spacebar, select inverse, or I could have just hit Control-I. And I have all those selected. I want to move those to their own layer so they're not in my way right now. I'm going to move them all the way over to the right. Okay, now I have nothing in the way. So I'm going to edit the cube here, the standard cube. It's going to edit mode on there, W, subdivide, and I'm going to go over here and give it 2 cuts will probably be fine. Now I'm going to kind of round it off. Not quite a sphere, but more like maybe a shoulder muscle, as this will be basically the shoulder muscle of the wing. I'm going to turn on can't remember what it's called here. Proportional editing mode. I'm going to turn that on. I could have just hit O also. O turns it on. Alt-O turns on the connected. So like say you have 2 pieces in your model. You select the corner of this one. If you have it set to connected, it's only going to affect this piece of this section of the model. If you got another one up here, it's not connected, so it's not going to affect it. So anyways, so I turn that on and grab these guys, kind of move them up, and kind of get the shape going. I'm going to top view, and kind of smooth this out a little bit more. And I'm changing the fall off of the proportional editing mode by scrolling my mouse wheel. There we go. Get this one here, and get these guys, and these guys. Okay, now I'm going to go into front view again. Grab my face select mode. Grab these guys right here, and back to front view here. And I'm going to extrude out. We're going to kind of follow sort of a half of a W shape, more or less, with a little twirl in the end. For the shape of the wing is going to come down, then go up, and come down a little bit. If you imagine, if you've ever seen a raw chicken before it's cooked or anything, after it's been plucked, kind of imagine what I'm wanting to go for here. I'm not giving it a lot of detail just yet because I'm going to come back in and put that in after I get it mapped out. I say mapped, kind of shaped out the way I want. And then maybe a little bit more here. And you can kind of make the wing any shape you want. If you want it to look a little more stylized, feel free to go right ahead. Okay, maybe this is a little down too far. Okay, go back to the vertex select mode so I can get a little bit more detail in here. Bring these up. If you hear me clicking, I'm hitting A to deselect all, or A to select all also, and then B gives you your crosshairs. You can click and drag across something, and then G, you can just drag your mouse around if you push G. So that's, if you hear my little clicking going on. Now I'm hitting Control R to add rings. And click. There we go. It's always good to have a lot of, not a lot, but, you know, a fair amount of rings around joints that are going to be bending. And then it helps make things a little more sharp if you have them closer together. So if you put a ring closer to the end of something, like I did right here, it's going to make this have a sharper edge once we add our subsurf, which I will do momentarily. Add one more right there. Tab out of edit mode. That's our basic wing shape. I want to smooth it up just a little bit. But first I want to add the subdivision surface modifier to it. And go ahead and turn the shading to smooth. So there we go. And let me go ahead and smooth this up. One trick I found, I was messing with the sculpt tool and I couldn't seem to get the smooth to work. But I figured out how to get it to work. And that's, you have to add another modifier. You have to add the multi-resolution to it. And that's kind of the same thing as adding the subsurf, but I'm not sure exactly what the difference is, but they kind of do the same thing. But anyways, so let's turn off subsurf for now. Just click the little eyeball, we'll turn it off. And on our multi-res, let's see, gonna expand that, and we're going to subdivide. I just need to do it one time for this to work. Now we'll go to sculpt mode, grab the smooth, and smooth scrap. Now I just click and drag. You can kind of see it working. Let's up the strength some. Quite a bit, actually. 0.6 will be fine. Just drag this over. Smooth down those edges so it's not squared off like it was. Same thing on this side. I could save some time by going down here a little further and turning on the, I guess it would be the Y symmetry, since it's the Y axis that's be facing. You see it's doing both sides at the same time. Okay, a little bit in here. Actually, I kind of want to edit this just a little bit, smooth that a little bit more, turn off the symmetry. There we go. Okay, I want to make this kind of have an indentation on it, so I'm going to go grab the draw tool, and actually I need to just put that back on smooth. Draw tool up here. Don't ask me why there's two different sections for tools choices. I couldn't actually tell you. I'm sure someone could though. So anyways, get my draw tool up here, turn it to subtract, and those strengths are probably fine. Now I'm just going to draw in here and it's going to make an indentation in there. Okay, let's do a little bit up here. And right there. So now you kind of see we have a nice indentation there. Okay, so I think we're pretty well done modeling our wing. I know what you're thinking, where's the feathers? Well, we'll get to that later. Let's come out of sculpt mode, and let's see what this looks like with the multi-res turned off and the subsurf turned back on. Not good. Let's change their order. Let's move this down. Cannot move beyond non-deforming. Okay, well, let's just go ahead and apply it then. Disable, turn off, let's turn it back on, and then we'll apply it. And we probably don't need the subsurf anymore. Not really. I'll go ahead and leave it on there. Just turn the render down to 1 so it doesn't take up too much space when it's rendering. Okay, anyways, let's add the soft downy feathers that you always see at the tops of the wings. The way we're going to do that, we're going to use the particle modifier, or particle mode, I guess. I don't know what you call it. The particles. We're going to use those. Kind of do the same thing that we did with hair, but we're going to change some of the settings, and it's going to look a lot like feathers. So I'll change this to hair, and let's go ahead and go in front view. And that's way too long, so let's change the normals. Drag that down, and that's probably good right there. And let's see, what other changes do we need to make right here? I think this is good. Let's collapse that, don't need those. Let's change the random. Nothing? Okay, that's for the physics, don't need to mess with that. Go ahead and turn on the children, I guess. And it's going to be from the faces. And display. There's a step to be ran. Here it is. Under render, change the random up to all the way so you can kind of see it's a little bit more natural looking than everything being the exact same length. We'll make it random. Okay, and now let's go ahead and go into particle mode and start combing it. And let's grab the tips. So we just get the tip select mode and we will just start combing. It kind of gives it a nice fluffy comb instead of combing the whole strand like we did with the hair. Okay. That looks pretty good, I guess. Alright, let's pop back into object mode. That was quick and easy. You know what, I'm going to go ahead and save this while I'm thinking about it. Don't want Blender to crash on me for unexpected reasons. So I'm just going to name this wing. And what the heck, might as well go ahead and put the date after it, just so you know which version it was you worked on. Today is the 28th of April. I'm sure when you watch this, it'll be a much later date. Maybe not much later, maybe tomorrow or the next day. I don't know. Of 2010. Save it as a Blender file, and there we go. So before I render this out and show you what it looks like, I want to give it some materials first. So I'm going to go to Material. And I don't want to mess with the first one, because the first one is for the model. I want to go ahead and add a new one, and as you can see, it copied the first one, so I just hit the little 2 beside there. That means it's got 2 placeholders for it, so we click that, it renames it to 1, and it gets rid of the 2. So let's go ahead and name this Downy Feathers. Okay, and let's change the diffuse all the way to white, and change the specular way down. We don't want them shiny. That'll be good. And let's go ahead and turn on the strand view here, strand mode. And let's pop over to the texture tab. It looks like we have a texture. I don't know where it's going, so I'm going to click that and turn it by itself. And we'll call this Downy, if I can spell properly, Downy Feathers also. And we don't want these to affect the color. It's going to affect the alpha. And the type is going to be a blend. The same technique I used on the fur tutorial, basically. I'm going to turn on my colors, color ramp, change this to black also, and I'm going to go both here so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to change this all the way down to 0. Hold down Control and you can click in here and it'll add another segment there. You can run that up some. And then the base will be a little bit darker too. And let's go ahead and add one more just right up here so it's not. Don't want that much. This one down some. Okay, that'll probably be fine. Let's go back to the Material tab and go down to Transparency. Turn that on, and let's make it all the way down to 0. And then, let's see, do we have Strand turned on? No, that is going to be, excuse me, in the Texture settings. Go down here, and Mapping is going to be Strand. There we go. So now we go up here. You can kind of see this is the left side of this is the base right here, and the top of it is the tip. So you can kind of see it's fairly opaque, and then it kind of fades out. So that is what we want. Now we need to change some of the settings in the strand. We didn't do this, I don't think. Yeah, we did, but we didn't do it as much as I'm going to tell you. Go to Strand, and the tip's going to be down to 0, just like it was in the other tutorials. And let's make the root. It's going to be big because it's going to be feathers. He's a lot thicker than hairs. So let's say 10. And you can kind of see it it's thickened up at the bottom and it's going out. So now let's go ahead and go into camera view. And you see that I can't really see anything because our model is so big. But let's turn on the same layer. Hold down Shift and click on that layer right there. Grab your camera. Hit G on your keyboard. And if you have a middle mouse or a scroll wheel on your mouse, just click it. Don't scroll it, just click it and drag your mouse back and it'll zoom out. And then you can left click and it'll release it. And grab the camera tracker, as you can see I named it up there. And just move it until the wing is in full view. And I tracked the camera to this object here, and I also parented it to the object. So now when I rotate the object, the camera rotates with it. So let's get the wing nice and lined up. Go ahead and save again, Control S, or you can hit Control W and F12 will render. Let's see what it looks like. Building the ray trees. Oh, I needed to turn the... Let me go ahead and escape here. And let's go back to the particle settings. Oh, Blender's locking up on me. Come on. Stand by. The computer likes to act up on me sometimes. Okay, we're good. Okay, go to the particle settings and make sure you turn on strand render and go ahead and check B-spline also. This will help render faster. Let's go ahead and save it. Okay, F12. Zoomed out so far. I'll zoom back in. Okay. You can kind of see it sort of looks like feathers, but we're kind of falling out of the shadow here. Let's edit that light so we're not falling out of that cone. Grab that, go to the light, and where are we going here? The size is going to just make that bigger. This covers the angle that the light is hitting. If you go all the way up to 180, that means it's basically a flat light coming in every direction from the light. Well, except behind it. But we don't want that big. So we'll just go down to, I think typical is 45, so let's go to 90. Let's double it. And let's just drag it back some too. That'll help. Make sure your object is encased in the cone of the light. I guess we could grab the object and scale it down some too. There we go. Okay, back to camera view. And let's reline it up. Okay, Control W, F12. Okay, that looks alright, I guess. But to really push it over the top, sometimes it disappears when you render something. Actually, you know what I think I need to do? Is it emitter? Oh, I don't have the right material set. That's why it doesn't look the way it needs to. So we'll just go to Material 2, which was the one we just set up exactly for it. Now we hit F12, and it looks a lot more feathery, as you can see. But the thing that'll really push it over the top, turn it up to 11, as it were, is to go down here in the children's settings and bump the clump all the way up. And now, if you render, boom. Looks like feathers, huh? Not too shabby. So these are our nice downy feathers. Now we need to get these long feathers that are going to come down off of it. So let's go ahead and save. Okay. Let's go ahead and make this a little smaller so we have more working space here. Go into front view, one on your numpad. Go back over here to the modifiers, and let's collapse that. And let's turn off the particle system for now. We don't need it. I mean, it's still on if you render, but we turned it off in the viewport. Okay, now we're going to model out a feather. So let's put our cursor over here, and we're going to add a plane. There we go. Tab into edit mode. Hit R on your keyboard, rotate 90 degrees on the x-axis. Hit enter. Good to go. And now we're going to subdivide. And let's do it 3 times should be fine. Let's grab this, scale it on the x-axis. Drag it down. Let's get my gizmo showing up here. There we go. And now I have the tip of it lined up where I want, which is on the cursor. So what I'm going to do is going to go 3D cursor is going to be the pivot point. Excuse me, make the pivot point 3D cursor. So now anything I do to it, rotating it or scaling it, it's going to scale it from that point. So I want to scale it a little bit more. Scale this on the x-axis some. Scale that down. Modeling out a feather. Maybe that's too much right there. And this is going to be the base of the feather, I guess the stem or something like that. Okay. And let's bring this down just to make sure I don't have anything else selected. Okay. Bring that down just a little bit. Let's turn off hit O on your keyboard, turn off the proportional fall off. And now I can turn off the 3D cursor. It's going to be the median point. Drag that down there. Okay. So if I tab out, doesn't look real great, but you'll get the idea. So now, what I want to do is create a texture for this feather. So what I'm going to do is going to go to the UV editing layout here, and go ahead and scroll over here so I can see what I'm doing. Tab into edit mode, select everything, and go to texture paint. And we're going to create a new image. Go to image. Let's see, where's my... Can't unwrap it. Oh, got to tab back into edit mode. There we go. UVs, unwrap. You can see it kind of unwraps the feather. I want to move it to the center, rotate. Actually, one thing I can do, which is a nice little shortcut, just select, hold down Alt and click on one of the lines here, and you'll select straight down the middle. I'm going to scale on the X-axis 0, so it makes it perfectly straight lined up. And now I'm going to go UVs, pin, and deselect everything, and just hit UVs, unwrap again. And it's going to straighten it up. It's going to line it up along that center axis. So let's kind of get this to look like the feather over there. Scale this down. Scale this down. And let's just scale the whole thing down so it fits in the box nicely. Okay. So go ahead and save. Save often. Oops, didn't mean to add a new layer. There we go. And now I'm going to do this UV, export UV layout. But it's only going to give me a couple of options here to export. Right now it gives you an EPS or an SVG. I'd really rather it give me the old-fashioned TGA like it used to, but maybe that's still in production. Anyways, EPS will be fine. So I'll just select EPS and delete the SVG after this. I guess I could type EPS in here. Export the UV layout. Good to go. Pop into Photoshop now. I'm going to open that EPS file right there. Open. And it gives you the options of how big you want to make it. I'm going to change it to pixels so I can see it a little better. And 1024 pixels by 1024. Let's make it even 1200. What do you say? And make it RGB. Okay. There we go. Problem is, with the EPS, it doesn't give you the full outline like it should. Now, it might be different had I put seams on this, but since it's just the one thing, I didn't put any seams. Anyways, I'm going to add a new layer over here. Grab my paint bucket, got my white color, just click in here. Now I can see it a lot better. And now, add another new layer, and go ahead and grab my black, or white, either one. Go ahead and paint inside this layer as well. And now I'm going to do this filter. I'm not sure if the GIMP or anything has this particular filter, but it's very handy to have. It's a render fibers. I think we did this one on one of the hair tutorials also. So you just edit these settings, kind of get it to look like strands of hair, or in our case, feathers. Okay, so now that's a little too dark. Zoom in a little bit. So I'm going to image adjustments, hue saturation, and I'm going to colorize. I don't want it to have a red tint. If anything, I want it to have like a soft blue. So let's go right there. We don't want the saturation to be very big. Change the lightness way up. And that's probably good right there. Okay. Now grab my move tool. I don't remember what that's called. I grab this layer that I applied the filter to, and I'm going to Control T. I'm going to transform it, rotate it around to exactly 90 degrees. If you hold down Shift, you can rotate in increments of 15. So rotate 90 degrees, and then grab it and move it all the way up over here. Center it on that line, and I'm going to go ahead and grab my marquee tool, select it where the edge of the feather would go, Control C, Control V, turn off that copy. Hit V again to grab the move tool, click and drag, line that back up. And now I'm going to edit, transform, And I'm going to distort. Grab this side, and you can kind of see what I'm working on here. Now we're going to get some a nice feathery look. Okay, so that's good. And now, let's just copy that layer. Just click and drag it down to the new. And we're going to go Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal, and drag it over until it's also lined up in the center. Okay, let's turn this off here so kind of see what we're working on. Looking good. Turn it back on, see where we're lined up. Let's go ahead and drag that down just a little bit, just so it's offset a little. There we go. Okay, now I'm sure as you know, feathers have a little, I don't know what else to call it besides a stem. I know stems are for plants, but I guess someone can correct me in the comments section either way. I'll call it stem for now. If I learn otherwise, I'll let you know. Right now I'm grabbing my pen tool. I'm going to draw our little stem thing. Click down all the way here. So make a very long triangle shape. There we go. And we don't want black. Let's turn it to white. And let's go ahead and turn off this layer so we can see it a little easier. And let's give it some depth. Let's throw some inner shadow. Let's see what that looks like. Distance 0. Make it size a little bigger. Choke. Choke doesn't need to be too big. And let's also give it some regular shadow, drop shadow. Distance 0. Size. Okay, and let's change the opacity down some. There we go. That's looking pretty good, huh? Okay, let's go ahead and save this. This is going to be the texture. Save as. Actually, I go save for web, so it keeps the file size down. Save. We're already in the right folder. Let's call this wing texture map. Okay. Now I want to create an alpha map. So the way I'm going to do that is turn off the background and turn on our layer so we can see where we need to be. And I think what I want to do, grab my pen tool and kind of draw right inside the edges of the feather. Okay, and I'm going to make this white. And let's turn off all the other layers. Add a glow to this, outer glow. Make it a normal blend mode and change that yellow to white. And let's change the size of it. You kind of see it. Let me tell you what I'm going to do so you can see it a little easier. Grab our background layer right here and let's paint it black. I see that layer and I want to paint it black. Excuse me. So this is going to be our fall off of our feather. It's a little too strong on the edge now, so let's keep playing with it. Change the outer glow. Let's change the opacity all the way up to 100, so it's a nice, softer fall off there. Make the size a lot bigger. Spread out some. Okay. And let's drag this down below our UV coordinates. And you can see it's falling well outside. So let's grab this, Control T, and then make it a lot more narrow. And bring the bottom of it up some. Okay, so this is going to be our alpha map. So go ahead and turn that off, and we're going to do the same thing. Save for web, and this time we're going to go to PNG 24 because it has transparency. So we'll go save, and this is going to be the wing alpha map. Okay, and let's pop back to Blender. Let's go back to the default mode, deselect everything, drag this out. Let's go ahead and hit N, collapse the item information there. We don't need to see that right now. Go to the materials. We're going to add a new one. Let's call this one feather. And go ahead and go to the texture settings. Add a new one. Also call this one feather. And this type is going to be a image or movie. and open texture map right there, open. And we want to turn the image mapping to clip. There we go. And it's already default set to color. And you know what else? Let's set it to, over in geometry, turn the normal on. And let's kind of collapse these so we can see what we're looking at. Let's turn to both so we can kind of see the sphere over here. And you can see, since I clicked on normal, it's already affecting the map at 1. If I keep dragging it up, it's going to make it even more. We don't want it that much. 1 would probably be perfectly fine. But you can also see that we really need to turn the specular level way down. Feathers aren't that shiny. Okay. So now let's try to do that alpha map that we created. Create a new one. And this one is also going to be image or movie. Image here, open alpha map right there. Okay, and this image mapping is also going to be clip. Collapse that. And we want to go ahead and pre-multiply there and turn off the color. We want to have it set to the alpha. And now we need to go back to the material and go to transparency, turn alpha all the way to 0. And let's see, we can kind of see what we're needing. Is it going to work? Maybe a little too well. Oh, that looks good. Maybe it's a little too much, so let's change that transparency up some. How's that looking? Maybe. Now let's see what that looks like. Go ahead and save. Pop to camera view, and let's grab the center and move it over. Actually, let's grab the feather and move it over. I'm going to rotate it around so we can see. And let's F12, render it out. And it's way too transparent, so let's make the scene a little bigger there so I can see it a little better. Go up to 60% over in the render window. So F12. Wow, that's much better. Yeah, that's way too... Oh, I tell you what I forgot to do. Cancel that out. Go to the texture tabs, and we forgot to turn this image mapping. No, let's see, mapping to UV. You need to do that on both of these. So grab the other texture also, and mapping to UV. Okay, so now when we render, F12, should get a nice feathery looking feather. There we go. Looks nice, huh? Yeah. Okay, so let's get this feather where it needs to go. So let's go ahead and cancel that out. Close that out. Save. Okay, back into front view. Now comes a little trick that I learned from dissecting the bird model from the Big Buck Bunny DVD, or you can download it from bigbuckbunny.org. It's called duplifaces. So the way you do that is you add a plane, and we're going to tab in edit mode, scale it down some, and let's center it at the tip of the feather. So we'll grab the feather, Shift D, cursor to selection, and then grab the plane. There it is. Shift S, selection to cursor. Okay. Now when I tab in edit mode, its center is going to stay put right there on the tip of that feather. I'm going to move the model up to over here, that face, just one face. And it works because this plane only has one face. This duplifaces. Anyways, you'll see. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the feather, grab that face, Control P, parent it. So now the face controls the feather. Now the magic, go over to the object data. Kind of collapse all these guys. Am I in the right spot? I may not be in the right spot. I guess I'm not. Go to Object. And there we go. Duplication. Click Faces. Boom. See what happened? It made a copy of this feather here because its parent. This feather is a child of this parent, and what the duplifaces does is it takes every face of that model and creates a duplicate of the child onto that face. duplicates onto the face. So now, if I create another face, Shift D inside the same model, it's going to make another feather. So I just keep doing that. Kind of rotate them as you go. Or you can do a couple, or do 4 like I did. Select all of them. Shift D. Rotate these guys. This one's a little, grab our face mode there. Shift D. A little too many of them going on now. Oops. Uh-oh, what did I do? I don't know what I did. Control Z. Undo fixes everything. I wish you had undo in real life sometimes. Anyways. So just grab all these and move them to where they need to go. Okay, so that's the basic setup. They're all overlapping each other, kind of. So let's grab every other one and go to hit 3 on your keypad, and let's just rotate them some so they're separated a little bit better. Okay, and let's go ahead and move them back to where they're directly underneath the arm of the wing. Looks like my timeline's going. I'm going to go ahead and pause. There's no reason for that to be going. Okay, and now if you scale one of the faces, nothing happens. But we want it to happen. We want some variation in these feathers. We don't want them all the same size. So the way you do that is over here on your duplication faces, hit scale. As you can see, it made them all smaller because when I scaled down the plane, it therefore scaled down the face, which is scaling down the child. So to get that a little bigger, I can either scale that face up like so, or I can just inherit the scale up. Let's go 2.0 would be fine. And now, if I want, I can grab, like, let's do every other one again. Okay. Right. Good. And let's go to right here, the pivot point. Let's go to individual origins. Now when we hit scale, it's going to scale all those feathers along inside their, each one's center. It's going to scale it accordingly. So I can change the size of those feathers. And let's get a little bit more fullness in here. Scale that one up. Now let's rotate this one out some. Bring it in. This is where you can kind of get artistic and kind of just make it look how you want it to look. As long as it kind of resembles a bird's wing or an angel's wing if you're so inclined. As long as it looks like that, that's what you want it to do. Okay, so we got all that. We got all these empty spaces up here. So I'll tell you what, let's do. Let's grab all those, hit A on your keyboard, and let's go hit 3 on the keyboard, or on your numpad, and let's rotate those a little bit so they're lined up a little more centered. And let's Shift D. Let's rotate those out. Front view. Let's go ahead and scale those down. So now we got basically 2 layers of feathers up here. Just move those until they're kind of covering up those holes. Scale them down some. And you know what? Let's move those back. Let's go ahead and do it again. Shift D. Scale them down some. Let's move them to where they're filling those gaps. Okay, maybe they're a little too far apart. Let's go ahead and grab them. Grab these guys. You could also model a wing, you know, doing this with actual geometry instead of using this little trick. But this way's more fun. I think, at least. It's like magic. Okay. So now we basically got our wing set up. So now if we render, we're not going to see this wing because it's parented here and it's doing the duplifaces trick. You're not going to see this one. So don't worry about that one sitting there. So now, let's go ahead and save. F12. Render out. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? A nice wing. And you can play with it as much as you want. Tell you what, let's go a little bit further if you're so inclined. Go and close that out. Save. And let's add a rig to it. Let's go right here. Put our cursor there. Make sure it's lined up here. No. There we go. Front view. Spacebar. Add an armature. And let's go ahead and set it up some over here. Turn it to X-ray. And I want the wire view. Now tab into edit mode. Grab the end of it. Move it all the way over here. Grab this W, subdivide. And I want 2 cuts. So that's right. Let's click that so it actually gets the 2. Grab that part and grab that part. Move it up. And let's turn this, let's tab back out into, go into, oops. You might notice this sometimes if you actually accidentally double click on there, it disappears. Where'd it go? Well, just click on the little plus sign right there. Pops right back into view. No problem at all. Go into pose mode. And let's turn this into B bones. So I think that's over here. Yes. And let's give each segment more segments. And those are going to be under here. In the deform segments. Give it 10, say. Give this one 6 will be fine. Grab this one. Actually, you know what? Let's create another bone. Go into edit mode. Grab this point and hit E to extrude. Grab that W, switch direction. Grab this one, Control P. Connected. So now this one's the parent of this one instead. Let's move that up. This is going to be the shoulder. You know, let's go ahead and name these. You can notice when I extruded that, it kind of flipped it around weird. I can fix that by Control N, and it recalculates the roll. The Z-axis now points up, and it fixes the weird rotation. So now let's go ahead and name it. N on your keyboard. This is going to be shoulder, and we'll call this one wing start. This one wing mid, and finally wing tip. Okay. The reason I put curves on there is so it's a, well, I'll show you here. Just as soon as we get it set up, I'll show you. This one kind of needs a few segments also. There we go. Kind of lined it up a little easier. And one thing you can do to get those curves to line up a little better the way they're supposed to is you can change the ease in and the ease out. Like this one, the in is on its start point and the out is on its out point. So basically, in this view, the ease in is going to be here on the left and the ease out is going to be on the right. It's going to be the same for each one. So I want to straighten up the out a little bit. So if I ease it out less, say 0.5, it's going to be more of a sharper angle here. More of a sharp angle. And this one, for the most part, it's okay. Let's go ahead and ease it out a little less also. And then this one needs to ease in a little less. And there we go. Okay, go ahead and save. And go ahead and hit N to collapse that. We don't need that anymore. And one trick that I've been using on fingers and such when I rig hands is it's a copy rotation. I can't remember the guy's name. He did a small tutorial on the shaman from the Sintel project, and he showed how to. Apologize for the guy. You know what? I'm going to look his name up right now just so I'm not naming some random dude. Hold on just a second. Okay, I found it. It's over on Vimeo. Just look up Shaman Rig, and you'll find a tutorial by Dimitri. And he kind of goes over a technique that I'd also been using before. But anyways, it's a copy rotation. So when I rotate this bone, these bones are going to rotate also. And I don't mean that they're just rotating because their parents are rotating. They're also going to bend. So the way you do that is click on this guy first. Shift-click on that. Control-Shift-C brings up your Add Constraints menu. And is going to copy the rotation. And you can see it flips it all around. You're like, I don't want that. Well, what you have to do is change the world space here. Go over to your Bones Constraints. Change the world space to local. Also local here. And we don't want it to be 100% influence. probably 75%, so 0.75 will be fine. So now if you watch, when I rotate the shoulder bone, the further I do it, the further you can see it. It also rotates the wing mid bone, basically the arm bone. So let's do the same thing for the very tip. Control-Shift-C, copy rotation, and change this to local 0.75. So now rotate that. I'll zoom out so you can see it a little better. It kind of straightens up and then bends more. And then if I kind of rotate it around, let's do the same thing for this guy, just so we can see what it's going to look like here. Local space, 175. Okay, now rotate this. Okay, rotate that around. Okay, so we got our little rig set up. Go ahead and save. Did I save it? There we go. So let's go ahead and apply it to our mesh. Let's grab our mesh, and let's go ahead and grab the feather mesh here if we can find it. It's kind of hard to click with just those little faces. There we go. This rig, and then select a piece of the rig last, and then Control-P, set parent to with automatic weights. Be fine. Back to front view, Z into solid mode, and now when I rotate, kind of see the feathers kind of separating there. Whoosh, whoosh. Nice sound effects, huh? So they kind of rotate. If you rotate the one little stump or whatever, you can kind of flap the whole wing, and it kind of bends along. So nice little way to create a wing with nice feathers. So one more. Oh, I was going to tell you, the reason I set up the segments on the bones is so the feathers could bend gradually instead of, well, let me show you when they don't have segments on them. Change segments all the way to 0. Same thing here. Rotate that. See how they're not really moving that much? They're kind of just following that straight bone. If you set the segments back to 10, and this one had, what, 6? Now rotate. You can kind of see it's more of a gradual bend there. So, anyways. Okay, well that's how you create a wing. Let's go ahead and put it kind of in a neat pose. Maybe like that. Okay, go ahead and save that. And set the scene up just a little bit. Go into the world settings and change the world to blend sky. Horizon color is going to be white. The zenith color is just a soft gray. We'll save. Go into camera view. And let's kind of rotate it down so we can see some more of those feathers. Zoom in some. Save. And let's give this guy a render. And you can see a pretty wing. Huh. Looks like... I thought I was done, but looks like we got some issues with the feathers following the model. And I know exactly why. I'll tell you real quick. Go close that out. Grab the model itself. Go back to your modifiers tab. And our armature is at the very bottom, whereas our particle system is second. So the particle system is on there first, and then the armature is controlling the mesh. So it's not controlling the mesh, basically, that the particle system is following. So pop that up to number 2. And go ahead and put it up to number 1. What the heck? And now when we save, and now when we render, you'll see that the little downy feathers are indeed following the mesh the way they're supposed to. So we'll do one more. Go ahead and clear that out. Just one more nice little render here before we go. And there you go. You can get a little more in depth if you like and just keep adding more and more feathers until it just looks as realistic as you want. Or you can, do a stylized however you want to do. So anyways, that will be all for this tutorial. Hopefully you found this to be entertaining and useful information. Until next time, I will remain David Ward, and I will see you then.